I'm out here taking my dog for a walk, and I've got the Airpods Pro 3 in my ear, and that is exactly what you're listening to. There's also a fly that's going to annoy me throughout the whole video. I know. This is the Airpods Pro 3 mic quality. Now, you've heard everything you need to hear from other people in terms of the features, in terms of how it's slightly bigger, how it has more battery life, all that jazz, right? So let me just get right into it. The stuff you really want to know, the stuff you come to my channel for. I've measured the transparency, I've measured noise cancelling performance, and I've measured sound quality, and I'm going to show you everything, but I'm also going to put it in terms that everybody will understand. There's that fly again. First of all, transparency. People are saying this is better transparency in the Airpods Pro 2, and for the most part, I tend to agree. This does sound more natural because it reproduces high frequencies a little bit more. Now, my frequency response measurements can only be between 100 hertz and 10,000 hertz because that is the limitation of what I have. But in that, I found something interesting which matched what I was actually hearing in the outside world. See, when I put these on, yes, it sounds a little more natural, but in some situations, there were some sounds that were actually amplified, which is pretty uncharacteristic of the transparency mode from an AirPods. So I decided to investigate. I played some white noise through a speaker, measured it with a microphone from 100 hertz to 10,000 hertz. Then I put the Airpods Pro 3, spoofed the sensor, put it on the microphone, turned it on to transparency mode, and recorded the same thing again. And ideally, the second recording, the second line, should match the first line because the Airpods Pro 3 should act as if it was never there in the first place. That's the whole point of transparency. And what we see here is the two lines that really do match, almost completely match. But between 1 and 3 kilohertz, you're seeing an elevation compared to the reference line, which means that part is being amplified compared to the original line. And this is probably what I was hearing in many situations. Compared to the Airpods Pro 2, the Airpods Pro 3 would sound like it's amplifying certain sounds. So I don't know why that is, but that is. Having said that, overall, it does sound a little more natural because it also amplifies or it also reproduces some of the higher frequencies in your ambient environment better than the Airpods Pro 2. So they have improved. Now, if the transparency mode felt a little unnatural to you or felt a little amplified to you, there is something else that you can do. You can do the hearing aid test. When you do the hearing aid test, it builds a profile. And if, like me, it says that you have little to no hearing loss, then you're going to get a transparency mode that is very similar to without doing the hearing test. But then you get to go into the hearing assistance tab and you get a slider. This slider is defaulted at 50%. If you have acute hearing loss, then change the slider to whatever sounds good to you. But if you don't have acute hearing loss like me, then push the slider up to about 70% and you get slightly more natural transparency mode. Now, this is subjective depending on the noise profile of the sound around you and whatnot. But now you have another option. You get to play with this. You get to find a level that suits you or just use the default transparency mode, whichever sounds better. But now you have options. Next, we talk about noise cancellation. I'm just going to keep talking through the Airpods Pro 3. So this whole video is basically a mic test as well. And I'm going to get on a main road, so there's going to be a little bit of traffic. Perfect, right? You can keep assessing the mic quality throughout the whole video. Now, here's the thing about noise cancelling. I measured it too. But I found something really interesting, and they have improved it, as they have said, just not in the way a lot of people are thinking. So again, the same thing, speaker, white noise, microphone, put the Airpods Pro 2, put the Airpods Pro 3 and compare the two and see what happens. But I've changed the way I do this over the past few months, and I think that has allowed me to find some interesting new things. So what I do now is I generate the noise as if it's coming through the side, then from the front, then from behind, and then I measure all of that and I check for consistency and I check for what has changed from last time. And that's exactly what I did. And what I found was very interesting. If the sound is coming from the side of the head directly onto the earbud, or if the sound is coming from front, it does a pretty decent job of noise cancelling, but not that much better than the Airpods Pro 2. In fact, very, very similar to the Airpods Pro 2. And look, this is still decent noise cancelling, but it didn't expect the very real difference I was hearing when I compared them subjectively in my ears, because this is noticeably better in the real world than the Airpods Pro 2. So then I decided to generate the noise as if it was coming from behind, and that is when I noticed a huge difference. The Airpods Pro 2 looks like this. Remember, on this graph, lower is better. So the second line, the one at the bottom, the lower it is, the quieter it is, which means more noise has been cancelled. And you can see that with the noise coming from the rear, it looks like this. It's actually worse on the Airpods Pro 2 than with the noise coming from all other directions. But when you switch to the Airpods Pro 3, That graph looks like this. Now compare it with the AirPods Pro 2 and you're seeing a huge difference. The AirPods Pro 3 line at the upper, mid and high frequencies are way lower, which means it is cancelling an astonishingly greater amount of noise when the noise is coming from the rear quarters. This is incredible. This means that the AirPods Pro 3 didn't just increase noise cancelling performance across the board, it specifically increased the consistency of noise cancelling no matter which direction the noise is coming from. That is a very good quality of life update. So if you're in any situation, it is going to sound much better, much quieter than the AirPods Pro 2. But if you're in certain situations, like you're on an airplane where there is a lot of noise from all directions, then that's when you're going to notice the biggest difference. So if you're a commuter, if you travel a lot, I mean, the AirPods Pro 3 is it's just that much better. And that brings us to actual sound quality. Okay, there's a lot of negativity about the sound quality. I am going to give a slightly more balanced take. I've got a frequency response up. You can see it, and if you know how to read it, then good. But let me just talk about it because most people just want to hear about it, right? It is definitely different. It is noticeably bassier than the AirPods Pro 2, and there is a little more vocal emphasis, and there's a little more treble effect to those vocals, which means vocals all sound just a little bit sharper and a little bit livelier, to put it mildly. Now, the audiophile in me is going, oh no, they've ruined it, because the fact is, they kind of have. There's a certain magic to the AirPods Pro 2. It wasn't the last word in quality and all that, but it was a very relaxed sound. It was a very transparent sound. It was actually a very well-tuned IEM, and it was very different from everything else on the market. And now, that is not the case. This is another IEM which is favoring a more commercial tuning of more bass and more vocal emphasis, but also throwing in some really unwanted little extra treble in there. There's a spike somewhere between 5 and 10 kilohertz, which is definitely affecting vocals, right? And the end result is that this is a more lively sound, but it sounds a little more forced, sounds a little less laid back and natural compared to the AirPods Pro 2. But the fact that it's more commercial also means that more people like it. It's got more bass. People are going to think it's amazing. And the average tech reviewer probably has the best take on this, because they're not looking at all these things. They're just saying, hey, does it sound nice and clean and fun? Is there something not too bad about the sound? And the answer is, yeah, there's nothing too bad about the sound. And if I'm being honest, even as an audio-focused tech reviewer, it is better tuned out of the box than 99% of the buds out there. I think the entire audio community, the enthusiasts, the audiophiles, they're all forgetting about the fact that most earbuds don't come very well tuned out of the box. And my whole channel is I test those earbuds, tell you why it's not great, and then give you EQ settings to make it better, and then you go try it, and usually it's some kind of better. This one, you don't have to EQ it. It is pretty good out of the box. Yes, it's extra bassy, and yes, the mid bass lacks punch. Like, it could be punchier bass. I don't know why they tuned it the way it did. And yes, the vocals sound a little more forced and lively, but it is still better tuned than a lot of other true wireless earbuds out of the box. Despite which, I feel sad. I feel like we've lost a bit of magic here. And I don't know why Apple went this way. They should have just continued to refine the AirPods Pro 2. But the AirPods Pro 3 was never about refinement. They didn't change the drivers. All they did was change the bass cavity and add to some vocal emphasis. So this was never about increasing sound quality. This was about changing the sound profile to something that will sell more. And that is what they've done. And it will probably sell a lot. Now, as for features are concerned, there are some things I'd like to shout out. There's that fly again. One is being able to use it as a camera control, which is very cool, but it has to be in your ear to use it. But when you do use it, the camera has a little bit of a timer, so you can use it, take it out, put it in your pocket, and take the photo. Another useful thing is being able to set a particular AirPods microphone as your default. So if you are the kind of person who has one earpod in or AirPod in at all times, so that you can take calls, but the other one's free, so you can have a conversation with your co-workers and whatnot, you can set that AirPod to be prioritized for calls, and that way you get better call quality as well. You get conversational awareness, which basically mutes the music that you're listening to if you're starting to talk, so you can have a conversation with someone. This is nice, but if, like me, sometimes you mumble to yourself, it can be a little intrusive. What I really like is adaptive audio. So this is a great alternative to transparency. Transparency works anyway, but if you're a little more sensitive to loud sounds in the area, then you can set to adaptive mode, and it gives you basically the same transparency mode, but with changeable loud sound protection. So if you slide the slider all the way down, then it'll be more aggressive, reducing the sounds that are extra loud in the environment. And if you push it all the way up, then it'll allow more of those loud sounds to come in. So I like that bit of functionality. I like that bit of customizability that they've given you. That is actually pretty cool. I also surprisingly have found myself using head gestures to accept and reject calls. It's a very nice thing. So you do get a couple of nice features. It's a pity that you don't get EQ. I wish they got. I would just give us some EQ, something to just change it a little bit, to relax the sound a bit. Apple, what is this? And here's the thing: despite my misgivings, I am still going to recommend this blindly. And let me tell you why. Nothing comes close to the transparency of an AirPods Pro 2 or a Pro 3. That's how ahead of the game they are. Noise cancelling, noticeably better, but does not maybe compare to something like a Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra. Having said that, it's also over $100 cheaper than the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra. And at $250, the Sony XM5 can't touch it. It's not as good as the AirPods Pro 2 or the Pro 3. And unlike the Technics, which is great, I love the Technics AZ100. You should go check out that video. Unlike it, you don't have to EQ the AirPods Pro 2, Pro 3 to get good sound out of the box. So how is that not value? At $250, I can't think of very many other earbuds that combined this kind of comfort, this kind of noise cancelling, this kind of transparency, this kind of out-of-the-box tuning, and give you pretty darn good battery life this time to boot. Tell you what, let's answer some questions. Should you buy this if you're on iOS? Yes, 100%. It is 100% worth it. Should you buy it if you're on Android? Well, you don't get any of the smart features, but there is, because of the improvements they've made, there is still an argument to get it. Having said that, these days you don't get multi-point. There's a lot that you don't get with the AirPods Pro 3. I'm not talking about spatial audio. I'm not talking about all that gimmicky rubbish. I'm just talking about multi-point, for example. That's a very useful thing that a lot of people use, and you don't get it here. That's a bit of a deal breaker for a lot of people. And finally, should you upgrade from an AirPods Pro 2? Yeah, by almost every metric, it is better than the AirPods Pro 2. So yes, the AirPods Pro 3 is worth upgrading and is worth buying if you're in the iOS ecosystem, hands down. No questions asked. If you're on Android, the decision is a little bit tougher, but not impossible. That's the thing. That's why the AirPods Pro 3 is so damn good. Now, if you're a member of this channel, you're not getting an AirPods Pro 3. I will still have to compare it with other things. There's more videos to make, but you do get giveaways, so try becoming a member. It's only $1 a month, $3 if you're feeling like supporting me more, but that's about it. Do subscribe, do like the video so the algorithm knows to push it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.